Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to the final night of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Budget Scrutiny for 2025-2026. I'm sure members of Overview are all quite relieved that by around 9 o'clock tonight it'll all be done and dusted, bar the shouting. But I have got suspension of procedure rules here just in case we go on. I've just had a glare from Councillor Dobbs, so I think that's the end of that one. Just for people who haven't been to either Monday or Wednesday night, just a quick comment. We're not expecting a fire drill tonight, so if you do hear the fire alarm sound, please leave the building by the nearest exit. Officers will assist in the event of an emergency. Please follow their instructions. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so please make sure, as you would anyway, that any mobile devices or electronic facilities have got their volumes turned off. Let's have a look. What's next? Tom, I think we'll go to you next for your recap of why we're here.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to apologise if anyone's hearing this for the third time this evening, but I can see there are some new faces in the room, so I am going to just quickly set out what the purpose of overview and scrutiny should be and the approach that should be taken to this meeting. The point that I would want you all to take away from me tonight is that scrutiny should not be about political point scoring. It should be constructive and it should be about best value for the residents of Dudley. What I'm going to say to you tonight refers to the Local Government Association publication, A Councillor's Workbook on Scrutiny. It's available online and is well worth a read. The concept of overview and scrutiny committees was introduced by the Local Government Act 2000 and is intended to give the rest of a local authority the opportunity to scrutinise the executive by questioning their decisions and policies and to issue reports and recommendations. The Local Government Association Workbook and the training that the LGA recently provided refers to overview and scrutiny fulfilling the function of a critical friend. The LGA Workbook states that the focus of overview and scrutiny should be on forward thinking and making positive changes rather than apportioning blame and focusing on negatives. In practice and in the context of the upcoming scrutiny meeting, I think that this means that members should not be looking at past budgets or blame for the current financial situation, but should focus on the budget proposals being put forward this evening and suggest alternatives where they are able to. At the risk of stating the obvious, tonight's scrutiny is about scrutinising this year's budget, not last year's or the year before's. Overview and scrutiny members should always look at how their work adds value. This should not be about political point scoring. This was a point that the LGA training emphasised on several occasions. They also made abundantly clear that overview and scrutiny committees should look to work constructively and positively with Cabinet. I recently attended other committee meetings and I was really impressed by how members from different political parties work together in a collaborative and non-partisan way. The chair of that committee meeting said on several occasions that the political colours were left at the door. I would suggest that a similar approach should be adopted in these meetings. Just before I hand back over to the chair, I'm just going to repeat the quotes from the LGA Workbook. Overview and scrutiny should be focused on forward thinking and making positive changes rather than apportioning blame and focusing on negatives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Simon, do you want to get settled in and then we'll carry on? No worries. Okay, so before we start tonight's session officially, I'll just explain for those that are watching for the first time or members who haven't been at any of the previous sessions how it will work. Tonight we're looking at public health and wellbeing and adult social care. So we'll have the Health Select Committee and the Adult Social Care Select Committee. The way the sessions will work is I will hand over to the chair of each of the relevant committees. For the first one, it's Councillor Hanif. He will then take control of the session. Members of his committee will ask questions for about half an hour. Then Councillor Hanif will hand it back to myself, and I'll invite members of Overview and Scrutiny to ask their questions, and then we'll sum up towards the end of the session. So, is everyone clear about that? Please make sure, because we are streaming live on YouTube, that you wait for your microphone to go red before you speak, otherwise people online won't be able to hear what you're saying. Okay, I think we're all ready then. Let's start officially. Councillor Cowell.
Sorry, could I just make a general point before you go into the main session, please?
I'm going to bring you in after agenda item 5, if that's okay. Thank you. So, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Thank you. Agenda item 2, to report the appointment of any substitute members serving for this meeting of the committee. Thank you. Agenda item 3, to receive any declarations of interest under the Members' Code of Conduct.
Thank you. Possible one from me. I'm the Chief Officer from Health Watch Dudley. And we're one of the services that are receiving some of the cuts that we'll be talking about more broadly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 4 we did on Monday, so we don't have to worry about that. Agenda item 5, as we've done on Monday and on Wednesday, this is an agenda item called Public Forum, where we invite any members of the public, whether they're in the gallery or in the chamber itself, to ask a question of members and of cabinet members. If the question is relevant to the budget and the budget areas we're exploring tonight, I'll make sure it's asked at the right time. If it's not to do with the budget, I'll make sure it goes to the relevant scrutiny committee at a later date. I notice we've got a gent up in the gallery. Is there any question you'd like to ask this evening? No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's the first 5 agenda items then. I had a message from Councillor Cowell earlier asking to make a general point, so I'm going to ask Councillor Cowell just to make that point now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to raise a general concern over the timings and procedure for this process set down by the League Group. We sat here until 10 p.m. on Monday and Wednesday looking at various proposals in the draft budget, including the housing revenue account. Scrutiny committees are to put forward items for consideration by Overview and Scrutiny at the end of tonight's session. Your committee will make further observations and submit those to Cabinet for their input and potential modifications to that draft budget. The Housing Scrutiny Committee has done its part, and here is the final outcome. The paperwork for next week's council meeting, including the HRA medium-term financial plan and rent setting. So unless the Cabinet have a crystal ball, all the hours spent by myself and colleagues and those consultees outside of the council on contributions are to no avail, and I don't think that is acceptable. Arrangements should have been made to bring forward scrutiny of housing if it was intended to be meaningful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. I'm going to ask Brendan to respond to that because it is a valid point.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Yes, that has been acknowledged, and so there will be a scrutiny report at Cabinet on the 12th of February to accompany the draft budget so that Cabinet will be able to select, if they are minded, the scrutiny recommendations to be incorporated in it. And the same process will run on the 30th for the housing items. So in view of the timeline, a report will be prepared tomorrow, which we will look to be seen under urgent business on that Cabinet agenda next Thursday. So the information will be before Cabinet and any adjustments will be fed into the papers for Council that evening. We may need to discuss with Democratic Services how that happens, but we are fully committed to meeting the needs that that have been set down in the question. Chair, thank you.
And just to add to that, the same applies to the council tax support reduction process, because that is also on the same agenda next week.
That is correct, Chair. Thank you.
Do you mind if I just say that while I thank Brendan for his answer, I am very concerned at the proximity of that report to the actual council meeting. It doesn't give myself and colleagues very much time to respond, and I think that's not good for the democratic process. Thank you, Chair.
And that's noted, Councillor Cowley. It's quite unsatisfactory, I agree. But I think we are going to try and do something about it to make sure that concerns are raised before Cabinet and Council. Okay, agenda item 6, scrutiny of the draft budget 2025-2026. We're starting with the Public Health and Wellbeing Directorate, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Hanif. Thank you.
And thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I think, first of all, I'd just like to convey my thanks to the Public Health and Wellbeing Committee for all their attendance and work throughout the year so far. So we're going to open up to questions, and like the Chair's already alluded, that these are to be kept relevant to the budget proposals only. So I'll kick-start myself with a couple of questions, and I'll hand over to my committee.
Yeah, before we carry on, I think that a presentation first, and then we'll go over to...
That's fine.
And I'm really sorry, but I knew I'd forget something. Can committee members make sure all questions are addressed to the Cabinet member, Councillor Clinton, rather than officers? And if he needs technical support, he'll bring officers in. Thank you.
Okay, so...
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. For the purpose of those watching at home, my name is James Clinton, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Public Health. We are here tonight so you can scrutinise the proposed efficiency savings from the General Fund that is managed by Public Health. May I remind members that the Public Health grant is not included in this session, as it has already been scrutinised by the Health Select Committee a couple of months ago. I will now hand you over to the Director of Public Health, Dr. Mayada Afan, who will take you through the slides. Mayada?
Hi everyone. My name is Dr. Mayada Afan. I'm the Director of Public Health. As mentioned, I'm going to give a high-level overview of the slides. It focuses on savings from the general fund, which is 0.8% of the total general fund. The slides also, it gives context of public health, and it gives an overview of the function of the main public health team and the function of environmental health, trading standards, and private sector housing, which we received recently. We also highlighted our priorities for the next 12 to 24 months, highlighting its link with the Council Improvement Plan. The background section details, give the information around the cost-saving proposals. There are two areas, one of them related to environmental health and trading standard workforce, and the other related to reducing the umbrella support contract for DCVS. Also, we finish by highlighting the impact of reduction in the umbrella support and the mitigation actions the team is planning to take to reduce the impact on the sector, the voluntary sector, and on community groups and on deadly communities. So that's all, Chair. Thank you.
Coming on now. That's it. That's better. Okay, so my first question to the Cabinet member is if he can, what is the impact of the proposed restructure on the Directorate?
Is that on? Yeah. The restructure, I think there's something Balvinder's dealing with. Is it Balvinder?
Yeah, thanks, James. I think the restructure that Councillor Hanif is referring to is the work in environmental health and because that's the point that's mentioned in the general fund. So it does talk about a changes in environmental health and the savings. Unless you're talking about the senior management restructure, that isn't part of public health savings. It would be the environmental health. The overall, the overall senior management structure. Okay, so so in terms of the senior management restructure, that was covered on Monday. But just in summary to public health, what we have done as part of the restructure is focused the fact that public health as a professional requirement of the council is really important, needs to work across all the council. So we've given that more prominence and more focus. And then the regulatory functions, of which environmental health and trading standards are part, are put together in a separate group. So that's the impact. They are changes to allow more strategic focus for public health across all our functions. Thank you.
Since the Office of Public Health was established in 2012, following the transfer of public health responsibilities from the NHS to local government, the Director of Public Health has been a direct line reporting to this Chief Executive to ensure the Director of Public Health has the authority in line with this statutory role. So why and if there is now a proposal to make a third-tier report on this?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hanif. So the new structure looks at strategic spans of control across all the statutory offices, of which the Director for Public Health is one of them. They are all on the same level and they will have all the same equal access to all the corporate functions. The Head of Paid Service, which is your Chief Executive, will have direct access to all the statutory officers, depending on the issue that's required. Now, we have discussed this with the Faculty for Public Health. We have shared the job description with them and we've consulted with them, and they are supportive of these arrangements. They did request some changes, all of which we've made. Thank you. And sorry, I just meant to add, it is not unusual for councils across the country to have different arrangements. Some do have it reporting into the Head of Paid Service, some do have it reporting into a director, and some have different arrangement. It all depends on what is right for the local area. Thank you.
So I'll open up to the committee now, and I have Councillor Adam Aston.
Thanks, Chair. Just a few words from me and then a specific question to kick things off. The health and well-being of the residents of our borough is of paramount importance, as we all know, and the scope and the reach of public health must cross all directorate boundaries if it's to function effectively. Just to reiterate, and I know it's been said by both Councillor Clinton and the Director of Public Health, that we're not here this evening to scrutinise the public health grant. That's been done separately by the Select Committee. We're here to look at the elements of the general fund relating to health and wellbeing in the general fund. So, just on the specific cut relating to Dudley Council for Voluntary Services and the umbrella grant, the umbrella contract. So, having sat through the budget scrutiny process this week, both in the chamber and at home, a common theme has emerged, and that is that the council is going to signpost Dudley residents to services provided by the voluntary and third sector. And yet, almost in the same breath, we're ripping away funding from those very same organisations which are going to have more pressure because we're signposting to them. For example, in this case, Dudley CVS. So my question is, what will be the real impact of this 80k cut to the grant support provided to Dudley CVS? What has been their response to this proposal, and what practical help, if any, will the council offer to Dudley CVS to seek grant funding from elsewhere. Now, I acknowledge there's mitigation detailed in the report, most of which, I suppose, are things that we should have been doing anyway, but the report literally says that the reduction in funding is going to increase demand on council services such as adult social care, community safety, and lead to a reduced level of community resilience. So why are we doing it? How confident is the Cabinet member that these mitigation measures will be effective? Thanks, Chair.
For you, Chair. I'm glad you raised this, actually, Councillor Aston. So for the whole room, I should just go through. I've got some notes down here, and I don't want to hoodwink anyone, so the facts have got to be the facts. And then if there's anything else more factual, we'll go to my header. So the reasoning behind the proposal is the information on the infrastructure support, as in the group support, was not available to the council. This is why this approach has been taken. It was decided we co-produce the new services specification and also to explore a number of functions taken on by our community development team to reduce the impact on charities, community groups and the members of the public. To achieve this, Public Health have 7 full-time community development workers or staff. 5 of these staff members are attached to our 5 townships across the borough. We also have 1 member of staff supporting marginalised communities and a team leader overseeing all this team. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach, but I personally do believe the team can do this. Going on to the grant support funding, if I just pass you over to my Ada, she'll explain how that's all going to happen.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Clinton. As I said, we've done the equality impact assessment. We've identified those impacts. And as Councillor Clinton mentioned, we have a mitigation plan to reduce this impact. One of the plan is we are going to co-produce a service spec with DCVS and in consultation with the wider charity sector. And part of the mitigation plan, we will look at what functions our community development work team can take on. As we have a fully staffed team, 7 whole-time equivalent, as I said, 5 as Councillor Clinton mentioned, and 1 just for marginalized communities, and a team leader providing leadership to the team. So by doing so, we will be able to measure the impact, and we will be able to get data on the reach and data on the impact. Just to give examples of the community development workers, for example, they have developed supported the delivery of cluster connect networks in each township area. Also, we fund the grant finder license and the community, and we have number of champions who can, within the council, who can signpost community groups to access fund from outside. And also they, part of their work, they enable community groups to connect community groups, share assets, and be able to becoming more operational without the need for the infrastructure. I'm not saying we don't need the infrastructure, but we can minimize and mitigate the impact on community groups by linking it to what we do in public health and the wider council. And I think this is an opportunity for us to ensure value for money and to ensure also being able to measure the impact.
Councillor Adam, anything you want to come back on? No, you're okay. I saw Jason's hand up. So Jason, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few points I'd like to raise in terms of, I'm Jason Griffiths from Healthwatch Dudley, by the way, and Healthwatch Dudley comes under the umbrella body of Dudley CVS for clarity. There's a slight issue, I think, with the equality impact assessments that have been discussed, because We've had a number of, well, 2 meetings, in fact, where the voluntary sector have been able to, over the course of an hour, discuss some of the potential impact that it will have on the sector and also, you know, more importantly, on residents. There we've expressed the fact that a number of voluntary sector organisations have expressed the fact that they haven't felt involved in the EIA process, therefore they haven't been able to co-produce these. So we feel that it's not accurately reflects the impact that these cuts will have. The part of the issue there is the pace that this has happened. They were initially consulted, the voluntary sector, in December, and a follow-up meeting in January. There's been inconsistency across the board. I mean, from myself, I have been communicated with and had the opportunity to comment on our EIA, but we know that's not been the case with other voluntary organisations. So therefore, we're not confident that we know what that impact's going to be. And certainly on residents, where those who are affected by domestic abuse or people who need to access crucial housing or benefit information, what the actual impact will be. We understand that these are really difficult decisions that have to be made. I think where speaking on behalf of some of the voluntary sector organisations that we spoke to, where the challenge is the process and the fact that they've not been able to accurately talk about the impact. There's a compact agreement which has been held in high regard previously, and there is a feeling that this compact agreement has failed at its first proper challenge, and I think that will have a detrimental impact on the relationships between the local authority and voluntary sector organisations going forward. So I feel there needs to be some work done there to repair relationships. There's also not an acknowledgement of the return on social investment, the money that some of these voluntary organisations bring back into the borough. I'll finish with just an ask that I kind of got out of the conversations, which is, can this EIA process be paused, or any further length of time be given, so voluntary organisations can clearly articulate the challenges that face them and ultimately the people that we serve. Thank you.
So thank you for that. I don't really want to kick this to my Ada. I might kick half of it to her. Obviously, we share your. This decision hasn't come lightly at all, but there were certain factors of, like, we had to go looking for the information on where all the money was being spent, and so we had to, like, have a backup plan in public health. So, like, the team is very good. They're very proactive, and obviously you can see in your books it's a £80,000 reduction to the CVS, but I do believe the team will be able to provide the support you need, and I have full faith in that team to deliver in helping you get in the grants. So hopefully you won't be losing out. If anything, I would like to see you get more. Maeda, would you like to add anything?
And I think this is why we will co-produce the service spec in consultation with DCVS and with community groups, and to see how much can be done with the 50% reduction and how much can be taken on by public health community development team. So I acknowledge the limitations, because there was limitations on the data, on the number of groups supported, and where they are cited. Yeah. So to go around this, that is the plan. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to come back on anything?
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose it's just that question really is whether those voluntary organisations that are affected by the cuts will have an opportunity to co-produce those equality impact assessments if they don't feel the information has been captured accurately. Thank you.
Chair, if I could come back on that. So equality impact assessments are produced in relation to changes to the budget the council is proposing. But as Mayada has said, the plan is to co-produce and redesign and transform the way that we work in partnership with the voluntary sector. As we do that work, the EIAs will be updated and refreshed. They're never a point in time, they're always a ongoing thing to make sure that you refresh them as you look at different changes. So where we are at the moment, our commitment is we are absolutely committed to the compact. We're committed to working with the voluntary sector to do things differently, work differently, and focus on those things. We as an organisation are going to do things differently. And as such, we will keep the EIAs under review and ensure they're updated. Thank you. I mean, there's lots of improvements. Whenever you do a process like this, it's been a really big budget process, one of the biggest that the West Midlands has seen outside of Birmingham. So there's always learning we can take from that, and we will build that in future years. But we have a very strong commitment in our operating model to work in partnership. So thank you for pointing that out, but they will be kept under review.
Okay. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Clinton, I note the general fund allocation of funds for public health activity is actually quite small. It does, however, make a very important difference to all residents and visitors in the borough. It won't escape any of us the increase in takeaway food and street food vendors operating within the borough. And therefore, will the removal of 1.5 full-time equivalent posts in environmental health have an impact on food safety standards in the borough? And if so, how can we mitigate this?
Just for the benefit of everyone in the room, I'll elaborate a bit more on this one. So the 1.5 posts, if that's all right with you, Chair. The 1.5 posts, one post was a food hygiene team manager. That came around because of retirement. And the half post, well, I don't like to call it half post, so the part-time post was an animal welfare rights officer. Now, the food staff one is obviously still vacant due to the person retiring, but the post was basically deleted due to a functional review. So, and until that review's taken place, then I can't really say too much on that one.
With the post that you've since deleted due to retirement, has there been a change in the operation of the teams and the work that they're able to complete, or is this something that you're confident isn't going to have a longer impact?
Sorry, yeah, that's working. So currently the rest of the team have absorbed the responsibilities, and they seem to be managing okay. Chris, would you like to elaborate on that a bit more?
I'll just share.
Sorry, that's a bit.
Thanks.
James, if you turn yours off.
Hopefully, can everyone hear me, more or less? Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Chris King and I'm Head of Environmental Health, Trading Standards and Private Sector Housing. Yeah, just to follow on from what Councillor Clinton said. Environmental Health and Trading Standards went through the first stage of a functional review process in the summer of last year. The outcome of that functional review process was that private sector housing transferred over from housing to us. So they're part of our regulatory services cluster. The other part of that functional review process was obviously with the view to save money. There was a retirement of a senior manager during that process. It was agreed that that post would be deleted, that management responsibility would be shared amongst the rest of the existing management team. And phase 2 of that functional review process is what Balvinder's already alluded to, where regulatory services as a group will move to a different part of the authority. So that's currently where we are at the moment. The answer to your question is we're managing, but it's a temporary situation. Thank you.
Come back on, Councillor Collins? No? Okay. Mitty, Councillor Westwood?
Thank you, Chair. No, I actually wanted to ask a question about the loss of the 1.5 posts. It was more for my own benefit, really. I just wondered what a food team manager actually did, and likewise, what does an animal health and welfare officer do, and what's the practical implication of the loss of these posts?
Magic microphones. I think that's best if I hand that to Chris, because he'll know exactly what's in their job roles. Chris.
Thank you. We're on. So we have two environmental health teams. We have the environmental health food team, which is what the food team manager was at the top of, and we have the environmental safety and health team, which deals with pollution control, animal licensing of pet shops and farms, and other licensing functions relating to statutory nuisance. So it's probably easier to deal with the animal welfare officer first. That was a part-time post. We have absorbed what that role was doing. We've had a situation for many years where a lot of our animal licensing inspections are carried out by Staffordshire Council. So we've increased the amount that's going over to them, and we've done that in a cost-effective way. So we're able to continue the service that we were providing without any real difference by just increasing what we're doing with Staffordshire Council, which is a lot cheaper than the funding of that post. So that's been quite successful. In terms of the food team manager, they do what it says on the tin. They manage the food team. There are 12 staff, environmental health officers underneath them, 2 principal officers, and then 10 senior officers that reported to that post. What we have done in a temporary situation while we await full review that I alluded to is that the responsibilities of that post have been shared by the manager of the environmental safety and health team and by myself. So we've been covering that post, and then the team leaders at the tier below, those principal officers, have also been taking some share of that work. And we've been managing that process as we go through now. But it is a given that there will be a full review of that structure in, I would expect, within the next 6 to 12 months. We now have private sector housing as well attached onto us, and we need to establish a clear management structure with that going forward. But it is subject to change, as Balvinder has alluded to, so these are temporary measures, but hopefully that answers your question.
Come back on that, or do you have further questions you may ask?
It's just a bit of elaboration on the animal welfare posts. As you explained, most of it's gone to sales staffs, but my second question was going to be if you'd explored external funding and who'd be expected to cover that work done by the animal welfare officer, but you've covered that. But I just wondered if, for example, there might be a role for charitable organisations in that role instead, like the RSPCA.
Organisations, and the links are on our web page to triage the RSPCA, and we work closely with the RSPCA on animal welfare issues. But our web page has recently been updated for animal welfare, and it does explain on there the various routes that we can take matters. The licensing stuff still sits with us. A lot of the animal welfare work isn't statutory, so the amount of service that takes place on a local authority level will vary from authority to authority. I'm an animal lover, we take it very seriously here, and we make sure that if it's not something that's within our remit or within our capacity, that we triage the RSPCA usually to pick it up. But often we'll joint visit with them, if that helps.
Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions? Councillor Cole?
Okay. So my questions are might be considered a fairly general one, but basically decisions made in other areas of this budget are inevitably going to have a negative effect on residents' mental and physical health. How is this going to be monitored going forward? And what preventions we put into place to mitigate the impact on residents' health and well-being? For example, have any resources been set aside to tackle mental health, especially depression and anxiety? Thank you.
Great question, Councillor Cobb. Yeah, so I expect my team to obviously help and assist in the other departments as they're embedded in there. But if you'd like a more detailed answer, I mean, it really sounds like I'm trying to fob you off here, but I'm not. I don't want you to get the wrong answer. I don't want the committees to get the wrong answer. So my ADA will explain how public health will go around supporting the other directorates.
Thank you. So I can confirm we don't have any reduction in public health services because they are funded from the public health grant. And part of our work, we are already working closely with adult social care to reduce demand on adult social care, working with children, social care, looking at measures to reduce need and others. We've just finished a system-wide mental health needs assessment, and we are in the process of developing a mental health strategy with a strong focus on prevention and a focus on demand management on social care. Our switches, we do have an extensive program of funding health-related outcomes in other services, for example, loneliness and isolation in adult social care, and these are renewed annually. So annually we will look at areas of most need and still meet the grant condition, and we direct the fund towards them. So by really two ways, by our switches and by using public health services and public health skills in terms of demand management, pathway redesign, looking at examples of best practice and ensuring value for money. So this is how, and we're working really closely with the rest of the council, planning and social care, housing and the environment as well.
On anything? You okay? You okay? Okay, any further questions from the committee? Yeah, Councillor Cook.
Thanks, Chair. My question is, how is public health going to reduce demand on adult and children's social care when those services are being cut and there's an increased demand? Thank you.
So one recent example, Councillor Cook, is well, I was watching online last night, and it was brought up about the hubs. I think it was Councillor Ali talking about the hubs. So public health, they fund a lot of the staff in these family hubs, and recently it was actually your ward, Councillor Cook, and your ward guys. It was in there to close the Briley Hill one, but we stepped in pretty sharp and saved the family hub in Briley Hill. So yeah, that's one recent example of how we're helping the other direction. Maya, do you share something?
So, for example, demand on adult social care, we have an umbrella of projects. The pressure on adult social care is around hospital admission and hospital discharges. So we're working on reducing hospital admission through improving health and well-being in care homes, vaccinating older people around pneumococcal and other older people's vaccine. As I mentioned, false prevention in care homes and in communities. And also we are working with adult social care to redesign the transition between children and adult. In children, we've already funded the family safeguarding project, which hopefully it will reduce demand on looked after children. And we're working very closely with children's social care to develop, as I said, the innovative fund in Priory Hill Family Hub. So the same, through either our switches or utilizing public health skills to ensure value for money and look at examples of good practice.
Did you want to come back on anything, or have you got further questions you may ask?
Okay. Considering the potential increase in demand on cancer services such as adult social care, community safety, health and wellbeing, and the reduced level of community resilience, how will the council ensure that the services are not adversely affected by the funding reduction?
So as far as public health goes, obviously you on the Public Health Committee, and I'll just briefly explain this for those on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, public health is obviously ingrained in every directorate in the council. We offer, the public health offer support, whether Maeda alluded onto it, whether that be financial via switches or advice or anything like that. So trying to answer your question, it is a case of we will do what we can for the other directorates. Obviously our budget's kind of ring-fenced, so it has to be spent in certain ways, but when the need arises, the team in public health, they will step up to the plate. Maeda, do you want to say anything else? Or?
For example, we are working on prevention and early detection of stroke and also dementia. So these are the things which causes pressure on adult social care, as well as, for example, pushing flu vaccination, because we have number of admissions due to respiratory diseases. So we are doing what we can. But as Councillor Clinton mentioned, the public health grant is ring-fenced, and there are conditions on what we can and cannot fund. So we're taking the full advantage of those conditions in terms of embedding public health outcomes across services. As I said, we will be reviewing those switches annually and see the areas more affected and see if we can pick and reduce the impact.
You okay with that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any further questions from any of the members on the committee? Are we all happy? We move on, or Councillor Reid? Yeah. Yeah.
What steps is the council taking to support residents facing illegal eviction or harassment from landlords, and how is it ensuring tenants are aware of their rights and resources available to them in the private sector?
That's working. Is that really relevant to the budget, Chair? Housing? Pardon? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm going to come in on that.
Sorry, Chair. We'll hand that to Chris.
No, hang on a second. Thank you. I don't believe that's a budget question for public health. So can we strike that one, please? Thank you.
Yep. What actions is the council taking to investigate and address complaints about health, safety and well-being hazards in private residential properties, particularly lights of lessons learned from Grenfell Tower and the Awab Ishaq inquiry? How many of these insights being incorporated into the local enforcement practices, tenants protection measures and landlord accountability framework to prevent such tragedies? Also, what effect will this have on issues around mould and damp?
Councillor Reid, Mr. King will answer some of that question because it relates to our department, but obviously some of it's going to have to go to housing as well, which I'm sure the chair will send to the relevant cabinet member after the meeting.
Thanks, Councillor Reid. Yeah, as I said earlier, the private sector housing team moved over to my service area last year. Their remit is to licence HMOs and to respond to complaints that we get from residents about the standard of private sector housing. That is the core part of their work. We will obviously respond to any kind of complaint or intelligence we receive about substandard housing that falls within their remit, and they do that on a regular basis.
No. We're not good. Thank you.
Sorry, can I jump in again? It's just been clarified by Tom that your first question is a valid one. So do you want to ask it again and get an answer? Thank you.
What steps is the council taking to support residents facing illegal eviction or harassment from landlords, and how is it ensuring that tenants are aware of their rights and their resources available to them?
Right, I'm going to fob this off to Chris again.
Hi, Councillor Reid. That's a core function of the private sector housing team. So that the information about how to make for a resident to come to us, a renter to come to us and make a complaint is on all of our outreaching materials like our website. And on a regular basis, they deal with exactly those complaints, either made to us directly by people that residents are affected, by members such as yourself, or by MPs. The legislation is going to change. As you may be aware, there's a thing coming through called the Renters' Rights Bill, which greatly increases the rights of renters. And we've been on some training courses for that. We're aware that it has an enormous scope. When that comes through, it will have an impact on all local authorities in Britain in terms of what we're expected to do to protect those vulnerable residents. And all I can say is that we're at a similar point to all of the local authorities about engaging in that learning process and finding out what we need to do to be ready to enforce that legislation where it comes through. But as stands, it is now, and has always been, a core function of the private sector housing team to represent those residents who may be subject to unlawful evictions. They have several investigations going on about that at the moment, and I'd say to all members, if you become aware of someone who's a victim of those kind of practices, please refer it through either to the team or to me directly, and as we do with other member referrals, we'll be straight on it. Sorry, that's...
As you are aware, I already reported a rogue landlord and how some tenants are living appallingly. And me, 2 years down the line, I can't see any development there on that the part on the street where we contacted you about. It's been ongoing for 2 years. I've had some of those customers come to me, residents who have just been thrown out on the street because the rogue landlord has still not been dealt with.
Yeah, can
I concern that?
Don't answer that one. Nothing wrong with the question, but it's not really budget related. It's a specific item.
Chair, was simply that I'll happily take that offline if you want to.
Okay, if you can communicate between the two of you, thank you.
Okay, you're okay on that then now? Yeah. Any further questions from the committee? Are we all happy before we move on? You want to ask something, Councillor Cobb?
Yeah. So just one last question. There is a 10-year life expectancy difference between the north and south of the borough. We know that child poverty is on the rise as well. When devising this budget in public health, what considerations have been made to tackle health inequality?
Right, Councillor Cobb. Health and inequality is probably one of the highest things on our agenda. Obviously, you state, well, the south of the borough is obviously quite more wealthy. There are wealthy parts in the north as well, but it seems to be related to the mid part of the borough. We do spend a lot of money and a lot of time working with people. I'll just reference Brockmore and Pensnet ward. So the team work with the local schools, the church, everything, bring everybody together. It started off I think it was the ward councillors, Councillor Collins, Councillor Sue Greenway, there's Councillor Westwood who's been involved, and previous Councillor Foster. They've been a great driving force in this, and what's come out of this is that there is a model, and this model is ready to go into St Thomas's ward shortly, along with Neverton and any other ward that it becomes appropriate for. Maya, would you just like to explain to the members how well it's actually going and how the pilot's going to be rolled out? Thank you.
So in terms of resources, we do have a dedicated team responsible for the inequalities and embedding inequalities across the system, because it is a multi-layered and it's not just public health's responsibility. So that we will have dedicated resources and also data in terms of measuring the inequality gaps. In terms of child poverty, we've done a child poverty needs assessment. Now we know all the hotspot areas. We started poverty proofing in schools and other related health issues related to child poverty, like oral health, for example. We're doing an oral health program in most deprived wards. Pensnet and Brockmore and Life in Lie are innovative approaches to empower communities to be able to take more responsibilities in reducing its own health inequalities and looking after themselves. It is going really well. We are prioritizing childhood obesity in Pensnet and Brockmore. They will be Beat the Street program in the summer, funded by external funding from Sports UK. And then we are working with the 5 primary schools in that borough to link in all the physical activities, review school meals, and looking at also education sessions for parents in terms of healthy eating and physical activity. It is not a problem that will be addressed in 5 years. It's a long-term process. We do also have our poverty strategy, which is, we call it, so it is a 10 years strategy, because this is where you can make a difference in terms of whole planning cycle and whole health improvement cycle. One of the things we are doing in Pensnet and Brockmore, we are linking the childhood obesity on improving parents and guardians' abilities to work and improve their income by improving skills so they can afford the healthy food option. We will be working with supermarkets and the private sector in terms of affordability of healthy food. So we are working hard and doing multi-layered approach, and we are measuring our progress.
Councillor, okay? You want to come back on anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to say the Life and Lie project that you mentioned, as councillors, we've been really impressed with the work that's gone on, that we've been involved with, and I'm happy to see that that's happening in other wards as well. Thank you.
Exactly. We are learning from Life and Lie and from Pensnet and Brockmore, 2 different projects. Life and Lie, it's focused on improving community cohesion and reducing community tension. Pensnet and Brockmore is a more cohesive community. So we are empowering communities to address their ill health, especially childhood obesity. And as Councillor Clinton mentioned, the next step is St. Thomas's and others, because we mapped all the deprived wards across the borough.
Okay. All happy? Everyone conscious of time? Anything further? Is that it? Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll hand you back over.
Thank you, Councillor Hanif.
Chair.
Members of the Overview and Scrutiny will be disappointed that I just had to stop Councillor Hanif reading agenda item 7, which would have ended the meeting. Oh, those faces lit up then. Okay, over to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their questions then. And listen, I'm not an expert on public health, and I'm not an expert on adult social care, which is coming up. But one thing I've picked up tonight that I'd like to ask about Councillor Clinton, and it came from Jason, is it? It seems to me that we are cutting funding to the voluntary sector, but asking them to do more. Am I right in that assumption, first of all?
So, well, it's a proposed saving, Chair. So half the money will come away. They will still get half the money, and basically we will help assist them with day-to-day things, and if they need that help, we'll also help them get, as Maida said, we'll also get them the outside funding they need to top this back up. Okay. It obviously you've been in these meetings. It's not just public health where this has happened. So thank you.
So the simple answer is we're taking funding away but asking more of them. This is just for Councillor Clinton at the moment, if you don't mind. Sorry. Yes, or listen. This is scrutiny.
Yeah.
Just be honest and upfront with us.
So no.
So we're not taking money away, but asking more of them.
We're taking a non-statutory item. We're not taking it all away. We're taking half of it away. Yeah, and then in return, we are offering our services to help them.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll take my own interpretation of that answer. Can I just say to colleagues, when members are trying to answer questions, try not to prompt them or speak from the back benches. I want to hear their opinion, nobody else's. Okay, thank you. So again, going back to the point that was made, if we're asking more of the voluntary sector, which I believe we are, regardless of funding, we seem to be, from the message I'm hearing, rushing things through and not really consulting in the way that we should. I mean, I'm hearing the initial consultation December, and then January we're in budget scrutiny, which isn't a lot of time. Am I right in assuming that we are trying to rush this through really quickly?
I wouldn't really go to the extent of rushing it through really quickly. Basically, we give money out. I'll just use the community forums as an example because most members will know how that works. The money goes out. They're supposed to come back and tell us what they've done with the money and stuff. And some of the voluntary sector, obviously, they're supposed to let us know what they've done with the money and how they're using the money and stuff. And it's not registered. It's not there. So we've had to. Obviously, we have to make efficiency savings, and within this process, we have put a backup. Obviously, we've got to make efficiency savings. I'll say that again. But the team are there. They are prepared to support these voluntary groups and residents. So I can't envisage if there is going to be pain, it will be minimal. The team will help these groups.
Not the question I asked, but just quickly, one word answer to yourself. Jason, I think it is, isn't it? Was that an acceptable answer for you?
One word answer? No.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand it over now to members of Overview and Scrutiny, and I've got Councillor Lawrence first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say I agree a lot with what Councillor Aston said about this £80,000. I was going to say I was surprised it wasn't mentioned more, but obviously you've just brought it up as well. To me, it seems a small amount of money in the grand scheme of this whole budget. I know it's not a small amount of money, £80,000, but we are talking about savings of £4 million in some other departments on the council. And I think what I see as a small amount in the budget is going to cause a huge amount of pain to these local charities. The presentation even admits that that some smaller charities will close down, and it's going to put more pressure onto the council. The impacts listed in the slide presentation are probably the most damaging I've seen through this entire whole process. I've been here all the nights. Is this really the only way of saving £80,000?
Councillor Clinton.
So, going back to the budget, obviously, Sean, you've been in the Cabinet before. We get a big list of things to go through, and which are proposed by officers, and we have to do sometimes some untenable things.
Just stopping you quickly, it was Councillor Lawrence that asked the question, not myself. You don't need to look round at him, but it wasn't me that asked it, was Councillor Lawrence.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, Chair. So, I mean, if anyone wants an explanation on how that works, I don't know if Councillor Clark wants to elaborate on how the budget works. No?
I think we've actually done that, Chair. So I think you know, we had to make some difficult decisions, and what happens is that we ask each department what savings can be made within their department, and this was one of the savings that was volunteered through the officers, as though they could cope with that saving in their department.
Thank you. I'm not going to mention Plan Bs because I don't want to set Councillor Phipps off on one, but I think Councillor Lawrence's point is really valid. Is this the best way to save £80,000 in the grand scheme of things?
I'll pass you over to my Ada because she wants to speak on this by the look of it.
Thank you. I agree with you around the impact. We were transparent on the impact, but also we are transparent on the ability to mitigate that impact. And as I said, the way we look at this, it's an opportunity for innovation. It's an opportunity to work differently within my community development team and within the voluntary to the voluntary sector. So I am really optimistic around the impact that it will have on community groups. I alluded to the grant finder software and our ability to support and build capacity within those small charities to be self-sufficient and to be more to have long-term sustainability. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure I heard similar arguments when we took community grant funding away, but hey ho. Councillor Lawrence, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think I'm preempting what we're going to talk about later in the meeting, but I don't know what other colleagues on the overview and scrutiny meeting think, but I think it perhaps could be a recommendation because of the amount of money involved that this decision is looked at again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I find myself in the privileged position of wholeheartedly agreeing with Councillor Lawrence. Hopefully my Ada can relax a little bit and enjoy a glass of water, because what I want to do, Chair, is actually tease out the Cabinet role and the advocacy of the public sector, which leads to an £80,000 cut coming before the budget. So the first question, there's a number of questions, Chair, but all on the same theme, which is on page 70 of the report. The first question, James, is what political engagement and input have you had with the voluntary sector?
The question was directed to the Cabinet member.
So, that's a good question. Oh, yes. Yeah, so personally, we've just been guided by officers and members of the council.
Okay, I will accept that wholeheartedly. So let's just explore the advocacy and your role as Cabinet member to actually support for the public health part, the voluntary sector. And you quite honestly have said that we've allowed this to be officer run. What do the voluntary sector do for the residents of Dudley, in your understanding?
The voluntary sector fill the gaps. They support people who can't get support. But like, I know where we're going here with the £80,000 cut to the 160,000, but the cut proposed is it's obviously been done in a way so the money's coming away, but if those groups do get in trouble, we have something in waiting to help support them.
To follow up from there, Chair, I understand the difficulty in answering the questions. Is it not true that the voluntary sector, as part of their core range of services, provide support, for example, those fleeing domestic abuse?
I agree there. I know Sam from Soda, so I know that very well.
Thank you very much for this. All budget themed, Chair, because it's elsewhere within the... is it not true that the voluntary sector, and I'll put two questions in one to save time, provide essential services for those in our community suffering from dementia or the pressures of mental health and youth provision?
That's correct, Councillor Lowe.
Yeah. And then the all-encompassing question, James, is, as the Cabinet member and in full knowledge of the budgetary report that slashes council provision, what recommendations, what arguments did you make to say that this £80,000 was a cut too far, if any?
Councillor Lowe, I did make representation, yeah, because I don't like cutting things. I don't like cutting things to myself. I don't like cutting things to anybody. But at the end of the day, you know how a cabinet system works, and that is how it goes.
Thank you much, Chair. So if the overview and scrutiny, and I think this will be my final question, Chair, if the overview and scrutiny committee this evening were able to assist you in that work that you weren't able to do in the Cabinet and recommend to the Cabinet that this £80,000 is re-looked at, is that something within the confines of the Cabinet that you would be able to support?
I'd gladly listen to the overview and scrutiny committee. I would gladly listen and try and work something out with the overview and scrutiny.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. We'll do what we can to support you in the areas that you were unable to do yourself as the advocate in this area. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I've not got any more. Okay. And Councillor, I've got Councillor Ali waiting, and we're running out of time. But Councillor Davis, you're a member of the committee, so you take priority.
Thanks, Chair. Very brief addition to the comments made by my colleague Councillor Lawrence. I think that it would be good if this £80,000 could be looked at again. Obviously, Dudley CVS do lots of good work supporting lots of organisations across the borough. I do think it's also important, obviously, to make sure that we know where the money's going, how it's being spent. So I think at the same time as looking again at this proposal, I think we should stick with the element of making sure we scrutinise, dig down into how that money is being spent. So I fully support the contribution by Councillor Lawrence, but adding that I still think we do need to make sure we've got the trail of how the money's being spent, to make sure we're getting best value for it to help the voluntary sector and our great organisations and charities across the borough.
That's a fair point. Councillor Sahota, quickly please, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to bring this to a conclusion. I think what we've just witnessed here just fundamentally just shows that in any process, when you're redesigning a service, it's imperative that you speak to your partners and take them on, discuss these implications with them. Clearly, the failure by Dudley Council to fully engage with its CVS and Health Watch clearly shows that the trust and the goodwill has been tempered. And I think it's about how council will now move forward to actually repair that trust. Because at the end of the day, the CVS deliver positive outcomes for the council, and they know that. And I think the way this has happened does need to be sorted out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, just a minute or two left. Councillor Ali, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Clinton. Councillor Clinton, I was a bit taken by your response in relation to this 80,000 reduction. You said we'll take half away, or we'll get half from somewhere else, or we'll get organisations to get funding from somewhere else. Can you name me 2 or 3 organisations where you plan to get money from?
Councillor Ali, it's already been mentioned that the public health team will assist with the grant applications for these groups.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, I did the same with Councillor Caulfield last night. You didn't answer the question. If you don't know where the money's going to come from, just answer that to Councillor Ali, you know. But if you do know, let him know.
Councillor Ali, the public health team will they have a big list. Mind you, the CVS have that list as well. They've got access to that list that we pay for, so they know where they can get the money from. There's lots of pots, and the council staff within public health will assist them in obtaining that money.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And obviously that didn't answer, because voluntary organisations are struggling in getting funding because the funding out there doesn't exist to the level it used to. So things are very difficult. So the whole thrust over the last couple of days has been that the voluntary sector will do this or that. And in the roundabout, I think it's over £1 million cut to voluntary sector in totality. So it's a massive amount. Just very quickly, Chair, we know the public health funding is ring-fenced. Can you confirm whether you've received the latest settlement? Has it increased or decreased? And also in relation to your answer in relation to the family hub in Brierley Hill, you said public health stepped in to save that. What is the long-term sustainability of that? And can you also tell us how many departments or services has public health supported or is supporting as part of the budget process? Thank you.
So to answer one of your questions, Councillor Ali, we haven't had our settlement yet. I hope that suffices on that one. Public health currently, obviously, as you know, you're very well versed in the public health sector. We do provide switches, but obviously those switches can only go to certain places. They have to fill criteria, and obviously they will constantly be on review if they're not fulfilling the need of the grant. Then obviously they could be taken away, as you know. But in the medium to short to medium term, I don't think anything we've done in public health will be taken away in those term frames. Mayada, do you wish to speak?
We do have a list of switches which details the departments, and we're happy to share it, the latest list.
Chair, just through yourself, a point of clarification. The Dudley Council for Voluntary Service saving is in relation to the corporate functions that they have at the centre, just like we as a council have support and corporate functions. It is mainly reductions in infrastructure, and I think not to answer for the cabinet member, but when specific functions such as charities were asked, this saving is specifically in infrastructure and corporate savings that they're making, as well as, you know, the worker transformation within the council in their corporate services to help them run more efficiently. We're happy to support them in that as well. But this is not direct charity, this is their corporate services infrastructure. And my order has just confirmed that to me. I just thought it was important to set that out because members have repeatedly asked, and it's layered, but this is the corporate functions. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Balvinda. Whether it's corporate functions or frontline services, we don't seem to be giving voluntary sector partners enough time to react. Last one now from Councillor Denning, and then I'm going to bring this session to an end.
Right. So, item 123 on the budget, Dudley Empowerment Partnership. You're going to cut £60,000 from the budget that was given the contract in 2022, if memory serves me right. What part of the service aren't they going to supply anymore?
So just to inform you, Councillor Denning, that's actually adult social care.
So which part of the service aren't they going to supply for £60,000?
It's the next section.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll run the meeting, thank you. Okay. Can you clarify that is in adult social care? Yeah. I'll bring you back in the next session to ask that question, Councillor Denning. Right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Councillor Clinton. You've been through the ringer a bit there, but thank you for all your responses. Thanks to members of the Public Health team. Thank you to the Health Select Committee members. If you can feed any comments you've got back to Councillors Reid or Hanif, they will let the Overview and Scrutiny Committee know what your recommendations are. And what I will say for now is we'll start we're running late already, but I don't want to read this out. So we'll crack on at 7 o'clock, please, with adult social care. Thank you. Okay, we're going to be starting in about a minute's time, and we've got the Adult Social Care Select Committee, Councillors Turner, Smith, Aston, Davis, Edwards, Hopwood, Johnson, Kayham, Reid, Russon and Sandal. Okay, everyone. Right, deep breath. We're on to the final session of this year's budget scrutiny process. Well, not for overview and scrutiny. We're here till 11 o'clock making recommendations, apparently. So maybe not 11, 10:59, Pete. So our final session today is adult social care, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Turner, who is the chair of the Adult Social Care Select Committee. He'll lead the first part of this session. Thank you, Stuart.
Yep, thanks, Sean. Evening, everybody. I think obviously we've got a lot of important stuff to get through tonight, so we'll make a start straight away. Councillor Goddard, are you ready to start your presentation to us, if that works?
I think I was a bit too keen there. Okay, so I'm Andrea Goddard. I'm the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, for those who don't know. This presentation outlines the Adult Social Care Directorate's strategy for achieving 10.66 million in budget savings while ensuring the continued delivery of essential statutory services. With the Council facing significant financial pressures, the Directorate has meticulously analysed service delivery, identified areas for improvement and developed a robust plan to optimise resources and enhance efficiency. The Adult Social Care Directorate is committed to developing high-quality, cost-effective services that meet the needs of our diverse population. This strategy demonstrates our ability to achieve significant savings while maintaining our commitment to statutory duties and ensuring the well-being of all adults within our community.
Thank you, Councillor Goddard. I'm Joanne Bourne. I'm the Head of Service for Assessment Independence within Adult Social Care. If it's okay, I'll start a presentation for you, Chair. We understand that obviously the 10.66 million savings target for adult social care is significant. However, it is important to remember that our overall budget for 25-26 will be 138 million. This means that despite the savings, the scale of our adult social care services will still meet the statutory requirements for our residents with care and support needs. Our commitment remains to continuously improve our services, and we are confident that the results of our savings plan will continue to focus on prevention and early intervention. We firmly believe in co-production, and we are actively engaging in services with service users and carers to develop solutions that effectively meet their needs.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I'm Marie Spittle. I'm the Head of Access and Prevention and Adults Commissioning. When looking at the savings, our focus was to prioritise and look at activities around practice. So we looked at proactive reviews, use of direct payments across the whole of adult social care, to avoid bed-based services with the priority of home first, as well as maximising income and looking at the use of grants and resources, which includes looking to outsource services like Blue Badge, like the Community Equipment Service, but also procuring a supported living framework to support individuals with the most complex needs. We've looked at a range of services and how they're currently delivered, and we've used this opportunity to start to explore how we could remodel services in response to the needs of vulnerable adults and their carers. This will include trialling innovative technology solutions to support both individuals to maintain independent living and in terms of our workforce to enhance the supporting tools that they use to carry out their roles. There is a slide towards the back of the presentation that also reflects growth to meet increasing demands, which is already factored into the budget. We're happy to support Councillor Goddard and answer any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, I'll open it up to the committee straight away. Councillor Aston.
Thanks, Chair. Aside from perhaps children's services, there's no other function of this authority as vitally important than the care, health and well-being of Dudley's most vulnerable residents. And the fact we're here looking at a budget report which will result in more than £10 million worth of cuts to incredibly important services, some of which will cease, is I'm not sure why any of us became involved in politics. However, we are where we are, and on behalf of the Labour members of this committee, we will criticise, we will scrutinise, but we will be constructive and seek to establish the potential impact of the forthcoming budget and how the worst outcomes for Dudley's most vulnerable can be mitigated against. Chair, I've got a number of questions. We've got an awful lot to get our teeth into, unlike the other, the earlier report, almost too much to get our teeth into. I've got a number of questions. I don't want to take over the meeting, so I'll ask a few questions and then come back at the end if there's any time left, if that's okay. My first for Councillor Goddard is regarding the budget consultation. So disabilities and mental health came out as the third highest priority for the respondents to the budget consultation. And yet we're taking an axe to some mental health provision in this report, including a target of 10% cut to mental health packages of care, floating support and direct payments, and we're going to do assertive reviews of mental health provision. So I suppose the wider question is, why did we go through the budget consultation process if we're not going to pay heed to the fact that many people were really concerned that disabilities and mental health should be prioritised? I'll go through them one by one, the slides. So starting with ASC 14, and it's the one that relates to the direct payments. So I'm aware there's a direct payments user group who meet regularly at Queen's Cross Centre, and I've attended a couple of their meetings. These people have a wealth of knowledge, particularly about the problems and challenges of being a direct payment user. The question is, to what extent have this group been engaged in ASC 14 and any other proposal relating to the direct payments agenda? Second question regarding ASC 21 and the one that makes particular reference to the Citizens Advice Bureau. So, put simply, what is the capacity of the CAB to deal with increased demand on their services, and to what extent have they been consulted?
Should we just go for 2 questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm aware of jumping around a bit now. I know.
Yeah. Losing the thread a little bit. So, Councillor Goddard.
Yeah, so the you talk about the disabilities and the mental health being hit hardest. When it comes to the cuts with the mental health, it was a service. Well, it was a saving because it was a service that was duplicated by the NHS. They were offering the same service, so it wasn't needed. So that was why we got the saving and ceased that. When it comes to the disabilities and the direct payments, we wanted to, we spoke with the team and wanted to change the way that Dudley delivered activities and a better way of life for those with issues, whether they were complex or small, so that they would have their own choice out there rather than paying for the commission. And that would also then help putting money back into the voluntary sector. I've forgotten what the next thing you said, sorry. Yeah, it does state, I think, that £25,000 comes goes off the CAB. It's actually 5,000 because we've sorry, I can't believe sang then. We've managed to get some split funding from somewhere else. I don't know whether you want to add any more to that, Emma.
So yeah, you're right, we're really lucky to have a really great direct payments group in Dudley, and they've been actively involved in the development of the plans around improving our direct payments offer. So we have a new direct payments lead who's met regularly with the group and members of that group, and they've been helping us in some of the planning and testing of some of the things we want to do. It's really important to us moving forward that they're an integral part of that development, and that anything we do regarding direct payments and how we develop it moving forward will be co-produced with that group being part of it, as well as other people who are not part of that group who use direct payments in Dudley. It's a really exciting time for direct payments, and you know, the improvements that we're hoping to see over the next 12 months is going to be really great for Dudley.
Councillor Austin, do you want to come back at this point? Or, yeah, I was just really going to, I think what we're all interested in is the impact, especially where it talks about on ASC 14, reducing client packages. What does that actually mean in reality?
What, the continuation of direct payments? Sorry, I can't remember. Huh? Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just trying to find out where it is on here.
In the impact of the residents. And given this is £1 million worth of savings, surely there has to be an impact on this that we need to know about.
So one of the things that we're looking to do is to, as we're reviewing people, is to make sure that the provision that they have is enabling them to be as independent as possible and have real choices. One of the ways we can improve that is to look at direct payments with them. And we're also reviewing the direct payments that people currently have to make sure that they have as much choice and control over those direct payments as possible, that they're aware of the breadth of different options that are out there to meet their needs, so that they are aware they don't need to spend that money on traditional type services, that they can use that out in the community to access a whole range of opportunities.
Sorry, can I just stop you? There's a couple of people who can't hear. Can you just pull the mic towards you? That'd be great. Thank you.
So as I was saying, so that they use the full range of opportunities that are out in the community, often services provided by the community and voluntary sector, and that so that in that way, the funding that we would normally spend on traditional services goes to those services that people have chosen themselves, that they feel will enable them to meet their needs and their well-being and keep them independent in their community. And they're in control of that and made that choice.
Okay, thank you. Just on the Citizens Advice Bureau, has there been any sort of work done in terms of how are we actually going to ensure that the Citizens Advice Bureau do pick up this work, given obviously the most vulnerable people may struggle to access them?
Okay, the Adult Social Care Department will signpost them and obviously help them as much as they can to get that information from them.
Am I right in assuming that the welfare rights team actually go out to people? Do they go out to people? Can someone clarify?
They do go out to people, but it's more in terms of the functions are they train staff across sort of all organisations around benefits awareness. They man an advice line 3 days a week that was set up in COVID, and then they support people through complex appeals, and they take referrals really from sort of the organisation, as in Dudley MBC and other organisations, to support people in terms of applications for welfare benefits. With regard to CIB, we currently invest 598,000 in terms of advocacy and information and advice. We've talked, there's been a lot of discussion over the 3 nights around the voluntary sector cuts. So to be transparent, the DEP partnership, which is CIB is part of that partnership, there is a 10% saving of 59,830. When we met with Laura Thomas, the chief exec, she referenced that would be the innovation element that would cease. So in terms of the activity and the contact with individuals, that won't be impacted.
They'll still get the support when you mentioned complex appeals. They'll still get that support from the council, will they?
Sorry, I can't guarantee that because the contract is around information and advice. So what we will be doing is making CIB aware of they're aware of all the savings, but in terms of the specific savings around welfare benefits, and we'll be working with them in terms of the support that they can provide moving forward.
Go out to people, give them advice, help them with complex needs appeals, and basically we're going to say, there's the CIB.
I suppose it's in terms of what we've discussed previously, in terms of we've had to make some very difficult decisions. So with regard to the welfare benefits officers and the welfare rights team, in terms of the welfare rights team, it's classed as non-statutory, and therefore that's why we've identified those savings. So as we've said, it's very difficult decisions, but in terms of the budget situation, we've had to make those recommendations.
I just note that this is a cabinet decision, not a management decision. A management fully supportive of this. Is this it says that this is a cabinet decision.
Yeah, sorry. Unfortunately, as you are aware, and I don't want to use this line and keep using this line, we have a budget that we have to set and put forward. There is not enough money in adult social care. we have to take money and make savings, because if ever there is a big problem that happens within adult social care, we will not be able to deal with it. So we are, unfortunately, taking savings from different areas, but we're doing it in a, well, we're trying to make it so that it's evenly done. And they do provide a similar, well, the same service sort of that we provided. So we are now signposting people to that service. Part of the service was started during COVID, and because obviously people couldn't get out, that part of the service, it obviously is now going to go. We've had to make hard decisions, and moving forward, this was one of them. So.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Goddard. Caroline?
You say that you are trying to work with CAB. As you know, that I run a community hub, and since January, I cannot believe the impact of people that are coming to the service for welfare benefits. Some haven't got access to phones to pay for those calls. CAB, they've phoned or they've gone to Provision House to make appointments. It's up to 2 weeks wait. I'm doing pension credits, PIP, attendance allowance, phoning safeguarding, and I am so worried that you're stopping this welfare officer, the welfare advice line, because little small organisations like us are going to pick up their impact, and we don't get no funding from Dudley Council. We fund ourselves.
And it's thanks to groups like you that we rely on for these services. I'd be interested, actually, if you don't mind, after finding out the numbers that are coming through your door, so that I can try and do something about that.
Thanks, Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going back to a point, Andrew, you made in reply to Councillor Aston regarding mental health services and the duplication with NHS services. So are you saying that the Dudley Council mental health services were not being used because they were already duplicated at the NHS? Or if not, how long have we been paying for duplicate services that are also being paid for at the NHS?
Very good question. There is 2 similar services that are provided. One is from Dudley Council and one is from the NHS Foundation, and they offer a similar they offer a similar service for those with mental health. It's low-level mental health problems, such as social anxiety. I'm not quite sure how long that they've both been running alongside each other, but I can get that information from Darryl if you don't mind having the answer from the lead member for mental health.
Yeah, so both services have run for a number of years. As you know, Dudley Council used to be integrated with the local mental health trust. So that split happened a number of years, probably 4 years ago. But the services still run alongside each other. It's the same client group, so the same people with enduring mental ill health who access Dudley social care services access our local health services for mental health. So that's where the duplication comes in. So the issue is then, we also have an in-house service still, which we have in the mental health service. So we still have a drop-in service that signposts people to these community resources and also to our health partners. That will continue. So that's not part of these savings. Where the saving is coming from is the duplication. So like I say, it's the same clients accessing very similar services, doing the same thing. And I've discussed it with our health colleagues. So I've discussed it with lead provider for mental health, and they're not concerned about this cut to the mental health service from the local authority.
I mean, yeah, I'm in complete agreement. It obviously makes sense not to have duplicate services running opposite each other. I am worried of, if it's been happening for a number of years, one, how the council allowed this to happen, and 2, the financial costs that we've carried for duplicating a service that we didn't need. Andrew,
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, Steve. As Tom said at the beginning, we're not here to look back, we're here to look forward. So I'm happy if Councillor Goddard doesn't answer that, because there's nothing we can do about it to change it now.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things, if I'm right in remembering, is that we have got a CQC inspection coming up. And I just wanted to ask Councillor Goddard what impact that is going to have with these cuts that are coming ahead.
That's a bit technical, so I'm going to pass that over to Emma, who is heading the CQC inspection.
So it'll be really important to CQC that we can evidence to them that the impact, that any potential impact from any cuts that are made, that we're managing those, and that then that people are not negatively impacted. So they're looking at the quality of service that we provide in terms of our assessment, support planning, and then the provision that people get to meet their needs. So they'll be looking at that, and they won't want to see any change as a result of the impact. So we're carefully monitoring and measuring that to make sure that we can really confidently show them that we have managed that impact, and that impact is not being felt by individuals.
Could I follow up then, Councillor Goddard, with asking what outcome you think we'll get from that CQC inspection?
I'm quite positive. I think we've worked really hard to try and get everybody on board to work really well together to make sure that the directorate are doing the right job and going the right way. There's a lot of frameworks that are changing, that we're completing. There's a lot of remodelling. And to be quite honest with you, considering adult social care is in such a state across the whole country, I am really proud in Dudley because our team have been absolutely amazing and have worked so hard to make sure that the remodelling within the directorate is really helping people within the Dudley Borough who need it.
Thank you. I'm not sure that answered the question of what outcome you think we'll get, but thank you.
Well, I haven't got a glass ball, but I would say that it would be a positive one, which is what I said before, a positive one.
A question on social supported living. You say that you're planning to move people from supported living into the social housing sector. For what reason and why?
We're not actually having to. We are reviewing. There are people who have got care of packages of care within social housing, supported living, who actually don't need it. And that is discussions we've had with our providers who have told us, we've got people who have got 3-to-1 care or 2-to-1 care, and they don't need the 2-to-1 care or the 3-to-1 care. And what our aim is not to cut, our aim is to give life back to these people. They want to live a life and they want to be as independent as possible. We don't live in the 60s and the 50s where we institutionalise people, and I want to make sure that as a team, along with the directorate, that we are moving forward and not moving backward.
And where are these social housing?
I could not tell you exactly postcode or anything like that, but I think Marie could.
It's an initiative that we're working with our own housing department, so we've identified a number of individuals that could be accommodated in general housing needs. So it was part of one of the bigger sort of more strategic view of one council. So adult social care working very closely with the housing department, identifying those individuals and looking how people can step down into general housing with floating support as an example. So what we've done in terms of that is we've identified training that's required by our social work teams in terms of the process and the application process for those individuals, and vice versa in terms of our housing colleagues of then in terms of that reciprocal arrangement where if those housing staff are more informed and trained around social care needs and those individuals with social care needs, then in terms of working together in a more collaborative way, we feel that that's going to be a positive outcome in terms of managing demand, managing resources, and as Councillor Goddard said, in an individual achieving their outcomes that they want to achieve.
Yes, I do. You say that you want to achieve the outcomes on people and put them into general needs. They've chose to be in supported housing for a reason, not just for the care or their age, but for security. Some people don't have families. Some people look at those sheltered schemes as a new way of life for them, and to move them into a community where maybe get floating support once or twice a week. Don't you think you're isolating them? Because really, a sheltered scheme is what it means. A sheltered scheme, pull cord, manager to monitor, food on site with the kitchen. They're moving there for a reason.
It's a different sort of, it's not necessarily sheltered housing. It's people who are having too much care and don't need that care.
But it says on here supported living, supported housing living.
Oh, sorry, it's for low-level mental health needs.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aston, you want to come back?
Thanks, Chair. I was going to ask a question of clarification just on that particular point, because I slightly got the impression we're talking about different things. So what we're not talking about with this particular saving is people living in supported living complexes being moved into general social housing stock. So that is, because that's the impression I got from reading this as well. So that is absolutely not what we're talking about here. Right. Okay, thanks, Chair. Is it okay if I ask another question? Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. It just relates to ASC 23, and that's the proposal to save £100,000 by outsourcing the Blue Badge and community equipment service. So I hate to keep going back to the budget consultation, but if we're going to do a consultation, it's probably worth just bearing it in mind at some point. So a direct quote from the budget consultation: respondents advocate for employing capable internal staff who can fulfil the roles currently outsourced. So the 2,000 people who took the time to fill in our budget consultation clearly want Dudley Council staff to provide services, even ones that are currently outsourced, and yet here we are outsourcing services that are currently delivered by the council. The question is, other than saving that £100,000 a year, are there any other benefits to outsourcing these particular services? I think probably more so community equipment service rather than Blue Badge, because I think that probably speaks for itself. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I believe with outsourcing it, we can make a more efficient model, because a more effective model, sorry, because there will still be a service level agreement. I don't know if you want to add into that, Marie.
In terms of outsourcing the community equipment service as an example, when we one of the additional benefits when we outsource a service is that when we have sickness, in terms of those sickness levels, and we have to reduce that service delivery. So in terms of collections and recycling equipment, making best use of resources, or delivering equipment to aid a hospital discharge as an example, if we've got staff shortages, then that will impact on that. If we outsource the service, then that would be, we would expect that the service level, through a service level agreement and that contract, that service would be maintained throughout.
We are also, I'm not sure whether you just mentioned that or not, one of the only local authorities that don't really do outsourcing of the blue badge anymore on the equipment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at ASC 25 and just moving the frameworks around for the supported living, I was just wondering for some more clarification on that. And my question is, how many direct hours of support might be removed?
Councillor Goddard.
There's that many savings on this brief that I'm trying to find where I Yeah, or Emma can actually, because me and Emma would.
This is a procurement activity, councillor, in terms of the supported living framework. So what we've got currently is we've got different providers on different rates in terms of providing the support. And what we want to get to is we want to get to a two-tier system in the fact of if they're supporting people that need to be, you know, they might be in a change situation. So we need to sort of work with them, you know, support them, and so they become settled in terms of where they are, in terms of meeting their needs. You know, they may be very challenging at the beginning, but, you know, once they engage with their sort of care provider, that might then become more of a settled package in terms of working with the individual to meet their outcomes. And then the other part of that is that two-tier. So when somebody is settled, so it's more of a maintaining that sort of resource with the individual. What we want to try and get to is one rate. So we've done consultation with our provider market in getting to that one rate. So what that avoids is if somebody takes on a package of care and then feels that they can't meet their needs and then hands that package back and then somebody else then takes it over, very often the costs go up. Whereby if it's one singular rate, then we can work with the market to create sustainability. It doesn't impact on the person because they're not moving around providers. So we see that, and that's happened in other authorities. So as an example, Wolverhampton have put that supported living framework in, and so have other local authorities. And you know, that there's been benefits around that, and we think in terms of this procurement activity will really make a difference in terms of managing demand, managing resources, but managing those quality outcomes for the individual.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question to that then. Is there enough providers currently to offer those packages for those that aren't willing to take on the new rates of pay?
We're in the midst of, the framework's not live yet, so we're in the midst of going out to procurement. So we've consulted with our provider market, and we've done some consultation and feedback in terms of providers that are, we feel will engage with the framework, and we feel that there's going to be sufficient providers on that framework in terms of the interest that we've received from our communication and consultation.
Thank you. Adela, question?
So my question relates to ASC 27. Can you give examples of the types of services or care packages that will see an increase?
Darryl, do you want to come in on this?
So this is the reviews of the low-cost mental health packages. So it's low-level packages of care, floating support, and direct payments. Am I correct? So this is the social workers doing reviews with a target of a 10% saving. And what we're doing is these are people who are having low-level support needs. They are quite well into their recovery journey, so they have enduring mental ill health, but they've had that for a number of years. The level of support is sorry. The level of support is low, and actually the social workers are going out and reviewing these packages using strength-based models, and actually that support is no longer needed because they're further along in their recovery journey, that as their mental health improves, the care and support needs decreases, and that's where that 10% saving will come from.
Councillor Edwards.
Andrew, you mentioned earlier a lot of the cuts are towards people with low levels of mental health issues, some not more severe mental health issues. What would you characterise as a low-level mental health issue? And would these people that you're moving into the social housing side of things fall into that category? Or could we think that maybe they're in that category because of the support they're already receiving? And coming out of that support could inflame their mental health issues?
That's a really good question. Obviously, there is health professionals that would judge this and do an assessment. It wouldn't just be you're out, you're out, you're out. There would be a health professional there who would assess the situation, assess the person to see whether they were fit and healthy and well enough to change and move to a different package of care or come out of the system for a while.
I mean, so obviously I know you're not an expert, but if, for instance, if somebody was suffering with schizophrenia, but they were stable in that because of medication and because of support they were receiving, would a mental health advisor say that they're good to go, or would they say actually they're good to stay?
No, that would not be a low-level mental health care.
Sorry, so could you give some examples of what would be low level that are receiving such good support?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier when I spoke about it, things such as social anxiety, which is what I'm having right now.
I'm afraid the funding's been cut for that. Sorry, Andrea. Caroline?
That's very concerning for me, Andrea, because my clients that I've got, two would be classed as low-level mental health, and the reason they would be classed as low mental health now is because I've made them stable. Prior to them coming to me, they were high-level mental health. My concern is that along the way, may you get it wrong, and as you know, that with the cost of this budget, the rises, they're going to go up. How many more people are going to turn low-level mental health, anxiety, depression? It's all going to escalate because of all these charges and all these cuts. I think we're going to see a big increase in mental health. I really do. And we all call it low-level until it reaches suicidal stage.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, and it's something that I thought about when I was looking at this. However, people don't stop getting monitored. But for the technical side, I'll give you over to Darryl because I don't want to put my foot in it and say something wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right in that using the word stable, but I suppose it's looking at it as a whole system approach. So it's not just the local authority and adult social care. It's services like yourselves, it's the health service, it's the GP, it's the CPN, it's that whole wraparound service that's around that individual, that's monitoring that individual. So the decision will be made over it could be a number of years, that person is actually stable. They're adhering to their medication, they're adhering to their treatment plan. They've had no contact with any other services other than their CPN, maybe their social worker. They're ready to step down. They're ready to maintain, to live their life, to carry on with their life. They've had an episode, they've been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. That's not their whole identity. So they're actually on this recovery journey. They're moving forwards in life. And this is what that's designed to do, is to help these people, aid these people to move on. It's not stripping away all the support. The support is always there. And actually and I know we use the term low level, but actually by reducing that support enables us to put that crisis support in, maintain that support, the statutory services that we have in place, so that the service is there, that if people if they do relapse, if they do have a blip with their mental health, that the services are there and we can step in and provide the support and help that these people need.
Sorry, Caroline, can we just move? We need to move things on a little bit, so I will just bring in Councillor Aston like I promised at the beginning.
Thanks, Chair. Just one last one from me, and it relates to ASC 121 to 127, which is the proposed reduction of contract spend with the voluntary sector, which includes Dudley Impairment Partnership, low-level mental health support services, Health Watch, preventative short break service, CHAD, peer advocacy, and health and wellbeing services. Just for my benefit, this relates to us procuring £600,000 worth of fewer services from those organisations. Is that right? And in practical terms, what does that actually mean? So what are we, for example, we know we've got Jason here. What does that mean we are not going to give or get from Health Watch or CHAD? So what does that mean in reality? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Aston. I'll go through them kind of separately, if that's okay with you, Chair. So if we start off with CHAD, we've been in discussions with Anna Walsh regarding the savings of £51,000 next year. She is able to deal with that this year. She's been extremely, to be fair, everybody has been extremely understanding. She's been extremely understanding. She is finding it difficult with obviously the following year will then go up to 102,000, which is an extremely higher amount. Obviously it's double. However, we have been working with housing and Safe and Sound, and we are trying to see if we can get that funding from the Burdens Grant. So we are in continuous talks with them to make sure that people who are suffering from domestic abuse are looked after, and we are still making sure that they have a service, sort of thing. The wellbeing support for carers. That is actually sounds worse than it is, if it can. The service doesn't work to full capacity. So because it doesn't work to full capacity, we're only using a set amount anyway. So we've just took it down to the need, sort of thing. So that's where the savings come in there. With the Health Watch Dudley, obviously it's a statutory service. So we're making a saving there on the grant-funded contribution from adults, and are currently sifting through the EIAs, which haven't completed yet, but we do have a bit of a dialogue. And it does show that there is a slight impact on the engagement, and again, that is something that we are working on. The Dudley CVS, that was 18,000, was a top-up that we initially gave them for support for staff for pensions. It wasn't something that we reviewed again after, unfortunately, so it continued. So we're actually just taking that back sort of thing. The Dudley Empowerment Partnership, which is the Maria's already sort of discussed. We've met with Laura Thomas and continuing to work with them to help as much as we can and direct where we can. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. I think we are a bit restricted by time, so I think for our committee, that's probably our sort of time is up, so to speak. So I'll hand over to Sean.
To the Sean, yeah, that'll do. Thank you. Thanks to members of the Adult Social Care Select Committee. I thought that was a really, really good comments and points. Right, over to overview and scrutiny then. I've just got another hand gone up. Couple from me, Councillor Goddard, and you know, again, this isn't a speciality subject for me, so it's going to be quite a generic couple of comments that I make. But we keep being told, not just in Dudley, but countrywide, that adult social care is one of the reasons that councils are in the mess they are financially, because of these unforeseen hikes in costs. We keep learning, we keep hearing, I think I've heard it from yourself and every other cabinet member and some of the directors that we've had in front of us, we keep hearing that we've had to make tough decisions. So am I right when I state, because this, we're not talking about, you know, green bins going up to £52, which is going to be paid for by people that can afford it, or council taxes going up 4.99%, which will be paid by people that can afford it. We're talking about cuts here. So my question is, am I right when I state that I believe this budget is going to hit those hardest that need these disappearing funds, not just in your portfolio, but in all of them, the most?
I don't think it's right for me to say for all. I'm here for adult social care, and we are here to help everybody. You know, it's equality. We help everybody.
Okay, thank you for that. So, I understand you're here to help, and I know you'll do your best, and I know officers and directors will do their best. But my question was, in the grand scheme of things, is this going to affect people who live in 4 or 5 bedroom detached houses with 3 cars and go on holiday, or is it going to affect people who are just about managing, people who need support, people who, it's all right, people who haven't got spare funds, they haven't got the availability to seek support that those better off may well have? Are they going to be directly affected by these cuts?
Nobody will go without social care. It doesn't matter whether you live in a mansion or whether you live in a tent. We are here to serve everybody. And you could possibly say that somebody who lives in a 5-bedroom mansion and has got a 4-bedroomed house around the corner could be affected far worse than somebody living in a tent, because they're having to pay fully, contributing for their care.
Okay, that's a fair answer. Councillor Goddard, are any of these cuts going to affect you?
I don't have any physical or mental disabilities, so it won't affect me in that sense. But I don't need adult social care.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe, I think you're next. Yep, sorry. Enough. No, it wasn't. No, I didn't ask that. I asked if any of the cuts were going to affect one particular person, and that was it. Thank you. Context. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'll just wait for my colleagues to calm down. The first contribution I was going to say is just to place on record, really, Chair, my thanks to Andrew for your detailed responses to the questions where you can. It's really appreciated in what is a really complicated area, and I think it's fair to say, certainly from a personal point of view, you've certainly clarified some of these areas and made them real, and made my job of scrutinising the process significantly easier. And whilst obviously I won't agree with you on all of it, I certainly welcome the level of detail and the fact that you're very, very clearly over your brief. So thank you for that. And also thank you to the officers for really detailed responses. I found it an excellent scrutiny session, to be perfectly honest, Chair. And as a result of that, I really want to theme them rather than the specifics, because I think colleagues have picked up around there, but really around the principles, because we'll be going into an overview and scrutiny process after this, and hopefully making recommendations to the Cabinet. So the first point is, and I'll put it as my contention, and just see whether we have any agreement on this. My contention is that the £42 million worth of cuts, of which a significant proportion in adult social care, firstly are unpalatable for everybody concerned, and secondly, we recognise that it's likely, as the impact assessments are saying, to have a disproportionate impact of those in receipt currently of those services, whether through council provision or through charitable voluntary. Would you agree with that? It's not a trick question, believe me.
Apologies. I think no matter who, and I'm not passing the buck by saying this now, I think no matter who was dealing with this budget, you are going to have somebody at some point that is going to be affected by it, which is why we have to work even harder as a team to make sure that all the statutory, duties are fulfilled. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Thank you very much. If we were to look at the budget slightly differently, so let's say, for example, we were able to find either a way to amend the money going in one direction in order to protect the money coming in the other direction, is that something that you think that we could support? And I'll just clarify that a little bit, Chair. So if, for example, we as an overview and scrutiny committee were to say, after all of the scrutiny, and I recognise that I'm quite happy for Steve to come in at this point as well, but I recognise you're here for children, for adult social care. But the principle is, the overreaching thing that's come out of every scrutiny is the impact that this will have on the most vulnerable groups, whether that be through council cuts or voluntary sector cuts. And if we were to slow down the rate of building up reserves in order to protect some of those groups over the medium-term financial strategy, is that something that would be taken positively, either at the Cabinet level or via the lead member of finance?
I think if the overview and scrutiny team, discuss this and scrutinise after, and you put the recommendations for us, I am sure that both Steve and I will take them seriously and look at them in great detail.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. One of the things, these difficult decisions that we are having to make here, if we just, and I'm sorry I am going back to a previous year, but autumn 2023, adult social care overspent by £10 million. Children's overspent by £3 million. So at the moment, we have £13 million worth of reserves. If it happens again, I need to protect this service, and I need to protect this service by making reserves ready if they need that, if they are in difficulty again. So from a macro point of view, we're having to make these difficult decisions in order to protect this service.
Thanks, Chair. Coming back on that, Steve, I recognise that what I'm attempting to do is to move the narrative away from the cost of everything into the value of the community. And I think that's where me and you would have fundamentally different politics. So the point that I'm trying to get to is if there's a way to get along that journey, because what we're trying to do is get a consensus budget here, that we could recognise that the pace of building up reserves is at the detrimental impact of some of the very vulnerable groups that we would wish to protect. So therefore we do that on a tiered approach over a medium-term financial strategy, because we recognise, for example, the consultation hasn't been done effectively with the voluntary sector. There's significant concerns with other those areas. Now surely that is something that we could look at, because our core function is around the communities that we serve, and if there's a way over the coming weeks that we can do that collectively, then surely that would be for the benefit of all.
Thank you, Pete. I think that the reality is that we could possibly look at that in a couple of years' time of having smaller levels of steps. But at this time, now, we need to make sure that this budget is fit for purpose, and we can make sure that the services that we need to provide are protected.
Final question, if I may, Chair. I hear what you're saying, Steve, but the budget overall, I am doing it from an adult social care perspective, but it is an overall budget question. The overall budget makes the assumption over the next 3 years that it will build up reserves by £15 million, 5 million, 5 million, 5 million. If, for example, it was accepted that because of the impact upon the most vulnerable and the most at risk in our community, that the amendment to the budget was 3 million, 5 million, 5 million, and that additional 2 million was helped to protect the very vulnerable, does that not achieve exactly what you're seeking to achieve?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because what we need to do is we need to get the reserves higher than that at a faster pace, so that if there is a problem again in adult services, adult social care or children's social care, that we can address that by giving them the money that they need.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to come back to the question I asked earlier, which you didn't like, but you'll see the point now, I hope, before there was much gnashing and wailing. I'll ask the question to myself, are any of these cuts, I know we're in adult social care and we've got more questions to come, but we're kind of rounding it off now before we have to make recommendations. I'm going to ask myself that question, will these cuts affect Sean Kesey? And the answer is no. And I throw that to you, Councillor Clark. Are these cuts, not the rises, are these cuts going to affect Steve Clark?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to answer that. My mother was seriously ill 2 years ago, and she used step-down care, and it was very valuable to me and my family. My father died in September, and adult social care were also there for me. So, yes, they are going to affect each of us.
And that's a fair answer. Thank you for that. Right, next on my list is Councillor Archer.
Yes, thanks, Chair. You're right, Councillor Goddard. You ready? Yeah, I was going to say, you're ready to answer this. No, it's a question, it's a specific question on ASC 31. This is the work with providers to reduce supported living packages rather than renegotiating contracts. Now, like the Chair, I'm not an expert in this area, but I have a good friend who worked, who was a carer and worked for a care provider. She, sadly, she doesn't do that anymore. And one of the main reasons was because she didn't have the time to give the right level of care to the people that she was with because of the way that the job worked. So my question is, are you confident that the proposed cuts will not have a detrimental impact on our most vulnerable residents? And if you are, how are you going to mitigate these cuts?
No, I don't believe that this is actually going to affect them, purely and simply for the reason that they will be reviewed,
and there will be cases and packages that aren't needed. There may be packages that need more care, but there are a lot of people that we are hearing from providers telling us that they don't need the care that we're actually supplying at the moment. I don't think a provider for 1 minute would give us that information if it wasn't true.
So if the because you're talking about cuts here of $500,000, it's a lot of money. So if the review shows that you can't or shouldn't reduce those packages, are you prepared to accept that you're not going to make these savings?
Sorry, this is going on evidence that we already have at the moment with some of the people using the service. Oh, sorry, can you just quickly repeat that last bit again?
Yeah, it was basically, you're either going to make the savings of $500,000 and potentially to have the detrimental effect, or if you review and you find you can't do it, you're not going to make the savings. I think it's quite that's logic to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, that makes sense. However, a package, the price of just one package is absolutely obscene. So, I mean, technically, do you want to come in there, Emma?
So what we'd be doing is reviewing each individual within the supported living based on the information that's given to us by the providers, that at that point, the package they're providing to them has become more than that person needs. So we would be reducing it in line with the needs that they're seeing day to day when they're working with that person. We review to check that we agree with the provider's view that their needs have reduced, so they no longer need that level of care, and that's where the saving would come from. We have a good idea of what that's going to look like given the information that's coming to us from the providers, and we're really lucky that we have great providers who want to work with us, who are coming to us, who are not just sitting there and not telling us. They actually see the benefit, and there's a benefit for them in it as well, in that they can then use those staff that are currently providing a service, because if it's they're contracted to do it, they have to do it. They can use that staff more effectively for those people who do need those hours.
Thank you. I understand the answer, and I hope you're right.
Okay, Councillor Priest next.
Thank you. I've already told Sean as well that I've got quite a few questions, so he can shut me up when he feels I've spoken enough. And I also want to echo what Councillor Lowe says as well. I think tonight you've modelled what we in Scrutiny want Scrutiny to look like, so I thank you for that. And I also have appreciated that you've mentioned how the choices have been difficult, and then you've not sugarcoated it by telling us, but despite that, services will improve, which has kind of been a running theme so far. I'm glad about that, but I'll get into my questions. My first one is about the Lie Community Project. I know that's not been running for a few years now. Could you explain in a bit more detail about what the work of the community project was? Do you think it was successful? Because I know the reason it closed down initially was because of the pandemic, I believe. And I believe the work's now been transferred into the Access social work team. Does it do similar work? Are the outcomes similar? And do you think that that's been a success?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, the actual project has not finished. It was just the community centre that we broke away from, because it's actually a portable service, so it can actually go wherever it wants to go, sort of thing. But I'm going to let Darryl let you know what the was it Darryl? Sorry, Marie, give you the full details of what they've been achieving.
So, as you said, Councillor, the Lie Community Project has been closed since the pandemic. So all those roles and functions, like supporting people with no recourse to public funds, as an example, a variety, you know, in terms of supporting asylum seekers, the breadth just carries on in terms of the Access social work team. And what we've been able to do, I think you heard earlier on from Mayada, was the Life in Lie project. So in terms of that community development work, because there was some duplication in terms of the Lie Community project and public health, Then Public Health have stepped up in terms of the community development work, the Life in Life project, and then in terms of the social work team in Access, they've carried out all the other social work functions that LI used to complete.
Thank you for that. I know we touched on it quite a lot earlier, but I just want to clarify on the welfare rights team now. I know it's a £300,000 cut to reduce it to a statutory service. Could you give us an example of what will be left provided via that statutory service?
The statutory service is made up of a team of welfare benefit officers, and what they do is they can carry out financial assessments for adult social care clients that are receiving care in the community. So what they do is they maximise people's benefits, and then they apply the fairer charging policy in terms of the assessed charge for that person's care. So that will carry on in terms of the statutory provision.
Thank you for that. In that case, I will echo again the comments that were made earlier, that it seems to me we're asking citizens' advice to do £300,000 of work, but for no increase in the amount of money that this authority is going to be giving them. If that's not the case, I'd welcome any comments, but do you want to come in there?
You can come in with it, but that isn't okay. So we're actually switching some services off, so we won't be asking the CAB to undertake training. So in terms of training, in terms of benefit advice, we'll be asking organisations to commission that themselves. So we won't be asking CAB to do that. In terms of the advice line, we'll go to the offer prior to COVID in terms of signposting people from our website to different organisations that may be able to support. And in terms of, we'll be working with CAB around the support they offer for people in terms of applying for benefits and talk to them about the appeals process.
Thank you. I think we may not be asking them to do it, but I suppose what I'm more interested in is, do you think that the service is providing something that is necessary and it's one of those difficult cuts? Because even if we're not asking it to be replaced, that is still £300,000 worth of time and support that will not be provided. Whether or not we're asking someone else to provide it, it's irrelevant to the point, really, but thank you.
I think I said earlier it is a difficult cut, but we've had to make some difficult decisions, and it was deemed as a non-statutory provision.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, I'll package the next two services I want to ask about. One is about telecare, and the other one is the Living Well, Feeling Safe, and actually also the Pleased to Meet You service. Those are three services that the Pleased to Meet You service. So those are three services that are received by a similar demographic of people in the borough. Is there going to be a gap in provision as a result of those service cuts? And are those services, not telecare, I accept, the Live Well, Feeling Safe and the Pleased to Meet You service, are those services disappearing entirely, or are we just looking at a reduction?
There's no reduction on the Pleased to Meet You service. That will carry on. So in terms of the enabling community support team, they will carry on working out of Queen's Cross, one of our hubs, and carry on providing that service via the telephone and in the community. So that will carry on. In terms of telecare, the telecare saving was following the functional review, and we had a really good discussion at one of the adult select committee about telecare and the charging policy. So the outcome of the functional review was that we needed to make 421,000 this year, 200,000 next year, and 100,000 the year after. And the aim is for the telecare service to be self-financing in terms of income, so there's no reliance on the general fund. And so we've been working hard in terms of consultation, in terms of the client base, because we started to charge council tenants as well as private tenants. So we've come through all of that. and we've got a plan in terms of making those savings to move forward. We've also commissioned an alarm receiving centre, so we're moving from the analogue to digital, and that will give us a lot more scope in terms of supporting people and supporting adult social care in terms of technology. The Pleased to Meet You service, we will carry on parts of that service. So the Living Well Feeling Safe partnership, sorry, it is a partnership, so it's not just the council, it's made up of a range of partners. And so we go into communities in terms of providing people with information and advice, so trying to work with people upstream. There will be an impact in terms of losing the manager of the service and looking at the non-pay budgets, but we will continue with some of the statutory functions within the service, like key safes when people are discharged from hospital, as an example, or there's a home safety issue. So somebody's sitting in hospital, they need a lock change, they need us to access a hoarding service or a deep clean in order for them to return home. That kind of function will carry on.
Thank you. Just going back onto telecare then, I know there's a near, but I can't remember the exact, it's more than 9, less than 10% rise in the fee. Is there, within that, is there going to be a concession rate for people who are on low incomes or low savings?
Yeah, there's a number of ways in which we support people on low incomes. No, it's so if people are on the council tax reduction scheme, there's a reduction as an example in terms of the charges. If they're VAT registered, if they're registered disabled, then they don't pay VAT. So there's a number of ways in which we support people to be able to pay for the service and receive the service.
Okay, thank you. And I have one final question, which was touching on something that was mentioned earlier on about the low-level mental health support. I think I don't know if I've got a question at the end of this, so bear with me, but my concern is that we seem to be talking about, well, because it's low level, that it's not really necessary because for whatever reason, but there's very few high-level mental health needs that don't start at low level. So is the authority not in danger of spending more waiting for people to end up with high-level mental health needs when we could have intervened early, as is the principle of a lot of what social care is, intervention early, so that we can stop these issues from developing in the first place?
Yeah, this is going like as a step-down programme rather than somebody coming to us with low-level mental health issues. We would never turn anybody away anyway. It's our statutory duty. However, this is trying to get somebody who is at low level into a state of being able to do more, rather than just we wouldn't just say, right, that's it, you finish, sort of thing, and be flippant. It's a case of they would still probably have a CPN if they need a CPN. They would probably still have other routes of getting to people if they needed that help. They could still contact the department if they felt that it was going the wrong way again. It's not just a case of low level care, but we're not looking at you. It's low level, we want you to recover, if that makes sense. Darryl, do you want to come in?
It's what I mentioned earlier, so it's around the duplication. So the services are already out there, and it's just that the local authority, we're offering a service that already the NHS is already providing. So it's just eliminating that duplication. We're not actually taking away that support for anybody because the service is out there. It's just provided by a different provider. In this case, it would be the NHS.
A 5-6 week course of, say, sessions of 3 hours per week or something, and when they've come to the end of the 6 weeks, you obviously review. However, the NHS are giving the same sort of programme, so it isn't worth the two programmes running alongside each other, and we're finding that the same people are attending both. That's
okay. Thank you for that. That's me done.
Thanks, Ryan. That's great. I don't think there's. I was about to say, you are sitting next to Councillor Dobb, remember, Councillor Davies.
Thanks. So my question is on ASC 15, the grant funding through Better Care Fund to support inflationary pressures. It's obviously quite a big sum item, particularly in future years. And my understanding of the Better Care Fund is that it's to do with pooled resources with other partners in the integrated care system. So presumably it works on a negotiated allocation basis, and this is what's been agreed. It says that it's based on an assumption. Now, this might well be a technical answer that we can, if the officers can provide the best answer, that'd be fine. Yeah, so it says assumption of 4% granted for year 25-26, and then that reduces, so the grant reduces, as I'm reading that, in future years. But if we look at the savings go up substantially, almost triple, over the period we've got there. So I'm just wondering how that works, if you could explain how the grant seems to reduce, but the saving goes up.
With the use of the Better Care Fund, it's about reviewing the entire business administration function for adult social care. So with a view to making efficiencies through the use of technologies. We've got some things set up at the moment, like Magic Notes, so where we do 3,000 documentations, can't think of the word, for care. What was it? Invoices. We do 3,000 invoices a year. So instead of having physically writing that sort of stuff down, we're doing it on using technology to do it. So that's saving money. And have you heard of the Ethel Care package? So the Ethel Care is a screen, and it's digital, clearly. And yeah, you've heard. And so we can cut a lot of services by interacting continuously on screens. This is something we're looking to for the future. Do you want to come in and add that more to that?
So I think my mic's come on.
So yeah, I was going to say there's someone at the back with their mic flashing. If
yeah, it was just to come in on the technicality of the figures. I'm Tom Hunt-Batch, Senior Principal Accountant for Adult Social Care. The values that you see in the table are cumulative totals, and the calculation has been based on inflation. So it's based on the government's predicted inflation for future years. So it's quite a prudent approach. So it's 755 first year. Going into minimum. Cool.
Okay, do you want to come back, or do you mind if I move things on? Because we're straying into yellow piece of paper territory again, and okay, thank you. I think that's it from members of RVU. I've got 3 other people who want to speak. Jason, I think you wanted to come in.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit more context about the impact of the cut to Health Watch Dudley, but and also ask a question as well. So in terms of our budget and the £28,000 cut, it will reduce our service down to 190 to the ring-fenced central government funding. So removing any local additional commitment. Now, we wouldn't want to argue at that £28,000 and take it away from any of the other services, obviously with respect to the scale of these cuts. So we don't want to take it off citizens' advice, welfare rights, mental health, etc. We don't want to be put into that position to argue for that. Having said that, the reality and the impact of that, which I think, unfortunately, due to the speed in which the process, having only learned about this after coming back after Christmas, is that the reality is that it will probably reduce our small service from 5 down to 4. And over the last couple of years, we've heard from nearly 2,000 people alone, just with regard to access to GP services and access to dentistry. With that, we've been able to work with healthcare partners and be able to put things in like patient charters and support that really brings about change. And what we've been able to do with adult social care is commit to interim views within care homes and nursing homes. Obviously, that will impact and reduce the level of which we're able to offer. So with that in mind, my question is really with any sort of additional local commitment removed, what is the commitment to engage with residents who access adult social care and to learn and adapt provision based on the experience of people accessing services? So what is the commitment to hear from people? We know that when we listen to people who access health and care services and we understand their experiences, the chance to change services is huge. I'm concerned that that's being reduced, and I want to know what the commitment is to continue to listen to people.
Councillor Goddard.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the question. Emma's done quite a lot of consultation with around this, so if I just pass you on for a response from her. Thank you.
We've recently produced a co-production strategy, and we're really committed to increasing the amount of co-production that we do with people with lived experience and people who are using our services. And we've done a lot of consultation over the last 18 months with people to have a real understanding of what they feel we do well, what some of the challenges are, what they would like us to improve, what they want us to do more of. And we're starting to build a really good picture of what that looks like, but we recognise we still need to keep building on that and increase it, getting people actively involved in the design of services, getting more feedback from people as they go through our assessment processes, as they are engaged with services and what they think about them. And then there are other opportunities. We're really lucky that we have both a learning disability and an autism partnership board in Dudley, and that both those boards are driving forward the community strategies, which is a really innovative approach in Dudley. So where we've turned the strategy development on its head, so people with the learning disability living in Dudley are writing the strategy. They are telling us how they want to live their life in Dudley, what they want that to look like, what they feel some of the barriers to that are. And then in response, as adult social care and other partners have also committed to doing this, we will respond to them and say, this is how we will meet the challenges you're giving us. This is how we will make the improvements you want us to make. So really them shaping what that looks like and moving into a place where they're guiding us to what they want adult social care to look like, what they want it to do and how they want it to respond.
Thank you. I'm going to move on because we've got two more. Councillor Goddard, this was asked about an hour and a half ago now, so I'm expecting an amazing answer because I know you were sat behind Councillor Clinton. Councillor Denning, your question.
So, Dudley Empowerment Partnership, it was commissioned in and got running about 2022. We've heard that the innovation part of it has gone. What else has actually changed from that contract, from when it was the VCP? Because the innovation part was actually going to bring cash into the partnership to actually steady the burden that the council was actually giving.
Okay, so the team met with Laura Thomas, as we said earlier, and she did say that she would look at savings through the innovation. You're still in talks with. Do you want to just quickly?
So in terms of the DEP partnership, it's a lot bigger than just the adult social care slice. So there's the investment from public health and there's the investment from children's. There's no cuts in both of those areas. So the actual contract itself is over £1 million. And in terms of the savings, it's just that 50,000. So I think that's why Laura was saying it would be that small innovation element that she would consider in terms of the savings. In terms of the DEP partnership and how's that developed, so with the cost of living hubs and other things in terms of public health priorities, they've been very flexible, very responsive, and we definitely work you know, continually in partnership. And I think one of my colleagues said previously, you know, these cuts, we've tried to, I know Jason said we met with him post-Christmas because of his leave, but we did try and meet with all the other partners to actually discuss with them in terms of the cuts and the background and the reasons why. And you know, we've got really good partnerships, and in terms of the communication that we got back from those partners has been really positive. And you know, we've been very clear, this needs to be done in terms of the budget, but once we stabilise that and we grow in Dudley, you know, we'll want to build those services with our partners again.
Okay, thank you.
And then
Do you want to come back quickly? Because
Yeah,
still got Councillor.
So it's just a question for Councillor Goddard. Obviously, there was mention earlier on about £10 million overspend last year. How confident are you as Cabinet member that you're going to hit your target?
I think it would be wrong of me to sit here and answer all of your questions if I wasn't confident in the target being hit.
Thank you. Last question then of the entire session, Councillor Ali.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think one of the questions I was going to ask Councillor Denning has asked anyway on the deliverability. But I think there appears to be a theme on the lack of understanding of the value of services that are being cut. I mean, just to give an example on the welfare team, obviously there's the statutory team part of it, and there's the non-statutory. But the non-statutory brings in over £1 million into the borough to help local vulnerable people. So that's going to be at a loss, and others haven't got the capacity. Organisations like CAB and you know, various other voluntary organisations, they just haven't got the capacity to do that. So I think it's the wrong impression to give that the voluntary sector will do this or this organisation will do this when they haven't. Some of them haven't even been consulted, or they haven't even understood the implication. Similarly with the social housing, while it's really good to get people out of institutionalised care into the community, into social housing, the problem here in Dudley is that there isn't sufficient social housing to start off with, and what there is, you know, the council's selling about 100 properties a year off to the private sector. Sorry? Yes, in the context, in terms of what I'm saying, there was a proposal about moving people from institutionalised care into social housing. So what I'm saying is there's a problem. We haven't got sufficient housing in the borough, social housing. So there is, you know, this proposal to move people out. While it's a good idea, what I'm saying, but there's a risk to that, and the whole budget, this one is laid with risks. I mean, even if you read this slide pack, everything based on this assumption and that assumption. So I don't think there's confidence in deliverability based on the track record of this administration. So that's all I've got to say.
Do you want a response or? Okay. Councillor Goddard, sorry, if you want to respond, feel free.
Yeah, I just want to clear a few things up. You say that we're not taking the voluntary sector into consideration and that we are not conversing with them. Every single person that we have made savings with within this budget for adult social care, the team have been out and the team have consulted them, and every single one has come back and said they completely understand. We have been understanding with them, they have been understanding with us, and we have also turned around and said, as soon as we can find sustainability, we will be there and we will support them once again.
Chair, I mean, if I can just come back on that, the sustainability is one of those things which is a massive risk. £42 million cut this year, 160 million proposed over the next 3 years. Where is going to be the sustainability? Big question mark.
Is that
I could answer that, but I don't want to go into politics.
Let's leave that as an open-ended question, shall we? Thank you to members of the Adult Social Care Select Committee. If members of Overview will indulge me, I'm going to do something I haven't done this week. But I'm going to credit Councillor Goddard because she's come in and given, in my opinion, a full-blown defence of the budget that's been proposed by Adult Social Care. And thank you for that. And thank you for members of your team as well that have come in. Okay. So, before anyone starts talking or moving, we've now completed the scrutiny sessions on all the Directorate budget proposals. On behalf of the committee, can I thank everyone who's participated in the detailed scrutiny discussions. I'm grateful to everyone who's taken the time to attend and contribute for their cooperation in the proceedings and for all the questions and responses that have been given. Given the volume of information, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee will now need time to reflect and discuss the process for making any recommendations to the Cabinet. Therefore, I move 1. That the Acting Lead for Law and Government, in consultation with all members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, be authorised to finalise recommendations for consideration by the Cabinet, and 2. That the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's recommendations be reported to the Cabinet. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Seconded, Chair.
Is that approved by the committee? Thank you. Right, this Overview and Scrutiny have got more work to do, so if I say 22, and we'll try and get done by past if we can. But thank you, everyone.